In powerlifting, you want accessories that target your weaknesses. Here's a guide for the bench press, what accessories to do for each weakness. I'll go over each range of motion, starting with the descent. Yes, you can be weak before you even try to press the weight, and a lot of the time, this is what causes issues for people. If you're really unstable, it's going to throw you off. And a great way to work this is tempo work. Exactly what it sounds like, slow descent to work on control. I usually say around the 4-second descent. Keep in mind that will usually be longer than a count in your head, maybe 5 or 6. Keep the speed consistent. A lot of people accelerate and dump the bar on their chest at the bottom. This is going to defeat the point of control. Keep the reps low of this variation. The reps are each longer, so high reps starts working endurance, not control. If you're unstable generally on the bench press like this clip, you can also focus on using leg drive to stabilize yourself with this variation. The slower motion makes it easier to feel the perturbations and adjust your body accordingly. Focus on driving your ribs to the bar like Mike Tushura here in this clip. Now, another good descent control variation I like is Spoto press. Pause about an inch off your chest. This comes from Eric Spoto, who formerly had the heaviest bench of all time. It teaches you to maintain tension right at the bottom range. You can do higher reps with this to start, lower weight and more reps of practice. As you get better, you can do lower reps and more challenging, heavier weights. Focus on making the pause height as consistent as possible to reinforce that control. Now, this control near the chest is important because touching the chest is where a lot of people also have a weakness. Even if you aren't benching with a pause like a powerlifter, you can still make the same mistakes here. One is collapsing the arch, basically letting the tightness you build be sunk by the bar hitting your chest. The other is having the elbows rotate too much relative to the bar once you do touch your chest. I think a little bit of elbow rotation is fine. In fact, I think it can be beneficial, as you tend to see some strong benchers do it. Usually their elbows rotate towards the head, not towards the feet though. If your elbows end up rotating too much, suddenly the bar isn't being supported by the forearm, but the chest, and you have to sort of get your arms back under the bar before you can efficiently press again. Now, to work either of these issues, one good lift I like is the long pause bench. Focus on keeping your elbows more static during the pause, and also focus on keeping your arch up during the pause, in fact, kind of shoving your ribs towards the bar. Look for some landmark in the background and make sure your ribs don't lower much beyond just maybe the bar sinking into your chest a bit. Again, go for lower reps here. You don't want to work endurance too much. I would go for a 2-second pause. This is usually about a 4 count in your head. Again, time moves faster when you're actually lifting a weight. This variation is also good for helping you find what touch point on your chest is the strongest. Generally speaking, closer grip means touching lower towards the feet. Wider grip means higher towards the head. Just a bit of trial and error and you can find what works for you. Now let's talk about actually lifting the weight, weaknesses on the actual press portion of the bench press, starting with the lower half range of motion. So biomechanically, this is the hardest part of the range of motion for shoulder flexion demands, linked to this below. It's not necessarily you're doing something wrong if this is your sticking point, just build up your bench in general. Specifically, your chest and anterior deltoids, the most active muscles at this point, again, linked below the studies on this. Now note, the anterior deltoids don't get good activation on the bench until you hit higher percentages or near failure. Most powerlifting work is going to be done below this intensity generally, so you may want some isolation work to target it. Careful not to go overboard and not cause too much carryover fatigue at your shoulder joints though. I find incline pressing is a good way to kill these two birds with one stone. It's a press that more directly carries over than the overhead press, but still biasing our deltoids more. Now, another thing to talk about is bar path. I have a whole long video of this, again linked below. Basically, as lifters get stronger and their motor pattern develops, they tend to naturally flare their bar path back towards the head. This also lowers the net moment arm for shoulder flexion. Recall how this is the hardest portion of the bench press biomechanically for shoulder flexion. So if we can lower the demands, it is beneficial. A fully flared bar path results in 35% lower shoulder flexion demands. And a good tool to work this is the 2-pause bench press. I demonstrate here with a bit of exaggeration. You pause halfway up, focusing on flaring as much as possible before the pause. You can again start with higher reps and lighter weights that are easier to flare with, and as you get better, go to lower reps and heavier weights. This style can work the shoulders more, so work on it gradually to let yourself acclimate. Now let's talk about a sticking point at lockout. On bench, or any lift really, it can be good to focus on speed in the first half of the lift, basically help that momentum carry you through a later range of motion sticking point. The long pause bench, even though it's focused on the bottom of the portion of the lift, can be good here as well, as you can focus on speed off the chest and really trying to explode up to lockout. The long pause also makes it easier to practice syncing your leg drive with your press. Again, this can help with speed off the chest, carry that momentum through the sticking point. Similarly, I like pin bench right off the chest. I got this from Josh Bryant. He coaches Julius Madlocks and many other 600-pound benchers. They tend to be these big guys with that triceps dominant style that's fast off the chest but slower to lockout. They really focus on building speed to help get that momentum through the sticking point. Now, muscle-wise, at lockout, our triceps are the dominant muscle. Shoulder flexion is mostly finished, we just need to extend the elbows. So work your triceps. Like the deltoids, the triceps do not seem to get maximally activated on bench until we hit more maximal percentages or near failure. Again, most powerlifting work is below this point, so go for some isolation work. Now, as you may know, we have 3 heads of the triceps. Let's go over the basic anatomy and how it's relevant for powerlifting. The bench press mainly works the medial and lateral heads of the triceps. While you can bias these a bit, the difference is minor, pretty much any exercise will work them. The bench press does not work the long head that much. This long head crosses the shoulder joint and can actually extend the shoulder joint, the opposite of the motion we want at our shoulder during the bench. Thus, the body tries not to activate it. We can use this to our advantage if we want to while working triceps. By moving our shoulder during the triceps exercises, we can avoid activating the long head as much. Now, I don't think this will make a big difference, maybe a small theoretical benefit with less fatigue and mass on what you don't need. Powerlifting is a weight class sport after all. But even if the difference is minor, the effort required is basically none. You're going to get some exercise in anyways, you may as well try. Which brings me to the last point. I don't think the exact triceps exercise we do matters too much. The differences are going to be minor. What I do find though is some people's shoulders or elbows get beaten up with certain ones more versus others. So I just do the one you find you can handle the most volume on. So that's basically it. What bench press accessory to work for every single weak point. I hope this video was helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And once again, thanks for watching.